In this episode of No Holds Barred, we're going to talk about that pesky California Vehicle Code. We're going to talk about, in this episode, just one infraction out of the thousands in this California Vehicle Code. And they'll be part of a series. We'll certainly talk about a number of other vehicle code violations that I think are of interest to people, many of which people don't know about, but can result in being stopped by a police officer and all the bad things that could potentially happen when you're stopped by a police officer. Let's say there's an estimated 28 million or so drivers in the state of California. That's a lot. And we have this vehicle code here that has thousands, literally thousands of vehicle code sections relating to almost every subject you can think of, from DUIs, 23152A, all the way through speeding, 22350, all the various things that you can think about. But today we want to talk about a particularly interesting one, and I say it's interesting because very much disputed and people get very unhappy about being stopped by a police officer for that. And what is it? Well, California Vehicle Code Section 5200. What is that? In the state of California, as in many states, you're issued 2 license plates. The law in the state of California is you must have a license plate affixed to the rear of your passenger vehicle and to the front of your passenger vehicle. The California Vehicle Code says you have to. So this isn't something they say, well, I just got that new Tesla and I'm sure as heck not going to put a license plate on the front. It's an absolute requirement, and it gives the police probable cause to pull you over. Now, it is a fix-it ticket, but I do want to talk about this license plate issue. Somebody recently came to us and said, I was profiled. So how are you profiled? Well, I'm a minority, and I was pulled over by a police officer for guess what? What? Not having a front license plate. And that's totally bogus because I see everyone everywhere with a Raider certificate in the front or whatever team that they like, or nothing, driving a Porsche or a Tesla or any number of cars that don't have front license plates. There's actually no excuse. You have to have a front license plate on your vehicle. Let me talk a little bit about how that might work. Typically, an officer sees that you don't have a front license plate, and you think in most cases has many other things to do than to pull you over, and they don't pull you over. There are certain towns that we know of in every city and every state that perhaps wealthier people, they have fancier cars, they don't have front license plates, like in California, and they don't get pulled over, and they think they're immune. They're actually not immune. And we recommend to everyone, make sure you have that front license plate affixed, and it has to be affixed. So there is even a vehicle code section that says you can't have it in your front window on your dash. It has to be affixed to the vehicle. What I like to tell people is it's of some interest. You can purchase a California Vehicle Code at any DMV office. I want to say it's $16 to $18 for this. And there are so many codes in there and so many, I think, infractions that you might find of interest by looking at it. And the interesting thing is, in the state of California, those 28 million licensed drivers, each one is presumed to know what the rules of the road are, what's legal and what's not legal. I will say at one point when I was a deputy district attorney and I would ride with various police agencies, and one evening at lineup, one of the officers said, "Hey, take a look at this, guys." And it was in the list of violations and in the back page of the vehicle code, there are a number of breakouts, we call them lists of violations, saying, hey, California Vehicle Code section whatever says this. And everyone in the room was going, really? So surprised, because there are so many potential violations that, in fact, even the officers who enforce them don't have them all by memory. And so that night, interestingly enough, I'm quite sure when the officers were out on the street, they were looking for this potential violation that they didn't know of, but it does give probable cause for a stop. What's probable cause for a stop? A police officer has probable cause to detain someone for a crime that occurred in their presence. See somebody punching somebody else, that's a battery, doing various things. Or if they're in a vehicle and they have expired registration, that's probable cause for a stop. They have a license plate light out in the rear. Why is that? Well, you have to illuminate at night your license plate. And if that light is not operative, an officer can pull you over for that. Getting back to the front license plates, many times people have complained that they've parked their car during the day, let's say at a parking lot, and they come back at the end of the day from work, get into their car, and there's a ticket in the window. What's this for? I paid my parking. I don't have a front license plate. And that happens regularly. So it's not a debatable point. You need to have that front license plate. Now, interestingly enough, the state of California did not used to require a temporary license plate. And recall, in many cases, you'd purchase a new vehicle or a used vehicle, and you get that little certificate, and you got to stick it in the right side of your windshield. Nowadays, before a car leaves the lot of a dealer, particularly new cars, without license plates, they must have affixed to the rear that paper plate. I'll tell you a reason in a little bit why that makes sense, but a paper plate. So rather than have the dealer announcing, I'm Yabba Dabba Doo dealership, front and back in bright yellow so that everyone knows where you purchased the vehicle, no longer. You have to have a license plate, that temporary one. And that is California Vehicle Code Section 516. It's been in force, I think, since about 2019, went into effect a couple years before, but it was allowed to start in 2019. The legislature, with AB 516, said for conservation purposes, however, we're not going to require a paper plate on the front and on the back. It only has to be on the back. So that, and it lasts for 90 days. So the same thing, the law prior to requiring under 516 that temporary license plate with numbers and letters that are easily seen by either a police officer, a license plate reader, you go across a bridge. That's the requirement for it. However, before it didn't have that. But the law before was you need to have your plates affixed 90 days from the time that you purchased that vehicle. And as you know, probably had many friends who actually never put their plates on. They just had the dealer's name in there and would drive the car for months and months and months, and kind of no one was the wiser. Occasionally somebody would be pulled over, and that is technically a violation. Nowadays you have to have that temporary on, and again it's for 90 days. But I will say from an enforcement standpoint, you could see quite difficult for any police officer unless the police officer stopped the person to determine that this paper plate has been on here for 120 days or more, whatever, in excess of 90. But that's what the law is, 90 days. And after 90 days, you are supposed to have your plates on the front and on the rear. No debate. Now the legislature also passed a pilot program around 2014 or so to go into effect, I believe, the first part of 2019 of January, and it has now been extended through 2023. And that is what we call a wrap plate. And a wrap plate means it's, in effect, you can send away to a company, and it's a single company. I believe it's LPN company or LWN, LPW, something such as that. But you can look up the vehicle code or even Google it. And there's a company in Southern California in which you can order a front license plate wrap. And that means, in effect, it's a material, it's like plastic, like people wrap their cars, that you can affix on the front of your vehicle. And that's acceptable instead of the metal plate. So in lieu of that plate, you can get that wrap. And that's important to have. So for those of you who don't want to screw into the front of your Tesla or your Porsche or anything, but you're violating the law without a plate, you can, during this pilot program, and perhaps it will be extended beyond 2023 and made permanent, affix a license plate to the front of your vehicle that does not require screwing it in. It's a wrap, W-R-A-P, on the front of the plate. It's important for people to understand to not violate the law and understand that it gives an officer PC to stop you, and that is probable cause to stop you. So let's assume you are with friends in downtown and you've had a couple of drinks. You think you're perfectly fine, and an officer pulls you over. Why? Because your front license plate is not on the vehicle as required. And that probable cause for the stop. And so the officer comes up to your car and asks for license, registration, and proof of insurance, and guess what? Smells alcohol in your breath. And all the problems that we know about that come with drinking alcohol, having it on your breath, and driving the vehicle. You just don't need that. We often think of pulling that person over because of no front license plate, and guess what? They have a warrant for their arrest. Didn't know. They got a ticket a long time ago, perhaps a parking ticket, didn't pay any attention, and it's turned into a failure to appear warrant, and because you're pulled over for not having a front license plate. Get that front license plate. Don't think that somehow you can talk somebody out of it. The officer has stopped you. It's nothing more than a fix-it ticket. Fix it yourself ahead of time. Let me tell you, there are probably maybe 21 states or so that don't have two plates issued. But for all the states that have two plates issued, and let's say you're from the state of Nevada, and you have two plates issued, but you've never put the front plate on, you've got Go Wolfpack on the front of your vehicle, and when you're in the state of California, you can be pulled over by a California officer for failing to have a front license plate, because the officers have a book and they can look right at it and reference that you're from whatever state. Since it's a state right next door, most officers know, particularly with the California Highway Patrol, that in fact Nevada issues two plates, and in fact they can cite you for that. Who needs that? Who needs the hassle of being pulled over? You're late for the wedding and you're pulled over for no front license plate. For any number of reasons, it's not something that you need to have happen, and it's very much preventable. When you look at issues of license plates, you think of illuminated. So the front license plate does not have to be illuminated. The rear plate does. So it is actually probable cause for a stop for an officer to observe at night a vehicle that the light's burned out for the rear license plate. And sometimes you see them above in a vehicle, right immediately above the plate. Many times in newer cars, from the side, there are two lights that are illuminated. But if the officer can't see it, or more importantly nowadays, the license plate reader can't see it, you're in violation. It's probable cause for a stop. So with respect to license plates, and the moral of the story is, before you get in your vehicle, walk around your vehicle and make sure that your lights are working, your license plate illumination is working, and you have plates front and back. And pretty much, unless you're driving 100 miles an hour around town, the police are going to leave you alone. But otherwise, it absolutely makes no sense, as many people like to say, that, oh no, I don't have one, because everyone else doesn't have one. Well, maybe when you're pulled over, you can try that on a police officer, but I don't think it will work. I don't think so. A big issue has come up recently that makes those front license plates even more important. And many of you heard about the smash and grabs that have taken place in many cities. And teams of smash and grab people will come into a city and very quickly in a half a dozen or more cars and run into a store, smash and grab, and run out and get in their vehicles. In almost all those cases, the witnesses have described that the vehicles have either obscured plates, there's something over the plates in front and back, or the plates are off the vehicles. So now more and more police agencies are watching that vehicles come into their jurisdictions, or they see them without a front license plate. They don't know if there's a rear license plate because they haven't seen the vehicle. They pull those vehicles over. And this may be somebody who's part of that smash and grab, or somebody who's going to commit some kind of a crime. So I'm gonna pull them over. Who needs that? You don't need that. Another issue with respect to plates is license plate readers. So you're towing that friend's boat across the bridge, and you don't have a front license plate, and guess what? Doesn't read it because the back is obscured and you don't have one on the front. It's somebody else's boat that you're towing, or it's some kind of a trailer that they can't read the license plate and properly identify you. And that's become a big issue in the state of California. The literally millions of dollars that are lost for people going through across bridges and tollways because they can't read the license plate of that particular person. So we're seeing more and more enforcement of ensuring that plates are not only not obscured, but that there are two plates affixed properly to those vehicles. Critically important. Critically important. This is just one of many episodes where I want to talk about kind of standard vehicle code sections that I think are either known or not known, many of which aren't known, but can get citizens, normal law-abiding people into trouble because they didn't know. They simply didn't know. And as one of the 28 million drivers, you're expected to know, but of course we don't know all of the rules. Kind of a final issue as it relates to license plates is many people have very nice cars. They keep them just immaculate, and they put a plastic cover literally over their license plates. So a picture, and you've seen many people, you perhaps may be one of them. That is illegal if it is dark enough or in such a fashion that it can't be read by a license plate reader. Sometimes at night, it's so obscured, and there's a vehicle code section right on point related to obscured plates. And that doesn't talk about missing a plate in the front. That is that a plate cannot be read because either it's too dirty or it's obscured by, let's say, a trailer hitch or a bumper hitch or anything. That is a violation. And again, it's not a violation that's going to put you in jail unless you've got that dead body in the car with you when you're pulled over, but it's a fix-it. But it is one more reason why an officer has a right to pull you over and ensure that things are safe on the road and that you're properly licensed. So that does it for our No Holds Barred episode on license plates in the state of California. In the future, we're going to talk about a number of other issues that relate to driving and this California Vehicle Code. Thank you for watching No Holds Barred.